June 26, 2006. This is Diehard Gamer Radio, Episode 9. Okay, well, welcome back to Diehard Gamer Radio. I am one of your hosts, Murdock, and as always, I have John, Brian, and Steve.
No, I'm not always.
Well,
I haven't
always recently.
Sometimes, possibly.
I'm a Quantum Steve.
Singularity.
Quantum Steve.
Why Steve in a box? Is he there? Is he not?
You can't tell if he's on the show until you listen.
Quantum Steve. Why haven't I leaped yet?
I'm going to leap into the body of
Shigeru Miyamoto. I'm going to call it the Wii. It'll be great. No, you haven't leaped yet. Why?
Why is this Japanese guy going, it's me, Mario?
I give this guy a mustache.
So we're going to go straight into our news bits because we've already fooled around enough. Or not enough.
Unlikely.
Yes. So first news bit is a major shipment of black DS lights missing. So they were stolen, I guess?
No, they're black. You can't see them.
That would make them camouflaged.
Well, the thieves just had good taste.
It's possible they're not missing. It's possible that...
No, they got stolen.
No. I mean, one guy pondered an idea. He says, what if one of those containers got misplaced? I mean, those things are huge, but if you moved one of those containers
how do you lose that, though?
Somehow just didn't notice it.
No, they got stolen because the serial numbers for the missing ones started showing up in China. On little street stalls.
Hello, black market.
Yeah.
Well, screw Nintendo then. I mean, that was just bad planning, I guess, on their part. Should have been a little more careful.
So, well, you see, that was one of the 5% of U.S. import shipments that get inspected. They got inspected really well, right out of the container and back to China.
Actually, that one wasn't coming to the U.S. That was going to Europe. That was their opening system. Was they were going to get the black system first and a bunch of games.
They're getting the black and the white.
Well, yeah, but they're going to be the first country to get the black, period, though. And so it was being shipped to Europe, and, well, it didn't make it past Hong Kong.
Well, they still had black ones.
Damn pirates!
Anyway.
Although, amazingly, it's been such a successful launch that you can still walk into a major retailer and buy them off the shelf. So I don't know how that happened.
And, of course, there are people in this country that are importing the black DSs not realizing that, Europe is on a different current than we are because they're, 220 voltage over there?
Yeah, you need the adapters and all that crap.
So there's a couple people out there that are wondering why they have smoldering pieces of Nintendo DS lights in their hands.
Oh, did they actually break them?
Yes.
How could it break them? It's using less of a current than it is in.
But I don't know how regulate it though.
Yeah.
But still, it's less of a current. I mean,
those
it's not
DC converters are pretty robust devices, though.
Yeah.
And there's actually, when I went to London, the laptop power supply thing, just plug it in. It's fine.
So next we have Metal Slug 3 PS2 will be released on July 27th, 2006. I checked the latest Famitsu score, and it got a pretty mediocre review. It got 6s and 7s.
Well, didn't the same thing happen to Castlevania when they went 3D for the first time?
This game was not meant to be 3D, and the fans know it.
You are correct. It's like Contra in 3D.
Well, how many tries did it take them to get a decent game for Castlevania? Isn't this third one okay?
It's okay, but it's really repetitive. Very repetitive. Next, Cultcept Saga scheduled for the Xbox 360, and there's a bunch of pretty screenshots on that website.
Yeah, there are. Definitely hoping that ends up with a U.S. release date.
Well, because you want it, you will not get a release date then. So
that's really sad too, because that was just one of the most unexpected, excellent games for the PS2. Just you have no idea where it came from.
Quite a silent little thriller.
Yeah, and the translation was just awful.
Well,
really, you had to
no less.
go by trial and error to figure out what the cards did. Yeah, I'd pay for Cultcept Saga and a 360 just to get a version of that game where you could figure out what things were actually supposed to do.
Yeah. So next, Microsoft announces more Xbox 360 backward compatibility, but keep in mind it's only for the real crappy games, like all the movie tie-ins and everything. It's not for any of the good games.
Well, they didn't sell the first time. Maybe if we force it on them a second time.
Well,
these are the only things you can have backwards compatible.
And there's the whole thing that they need a whole separate backwards compatibility list for the stuff that runs but doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
Well,
see,
so
this is
far
where
it's the only way you're going to get a good burnout on the 360.
This is where the PS3 is going to do well because it's going to be completely backwards compatible.
Did Burnout 3 ever get to be backwards compatible? I didn't
Sure.
think they ever added that.
I don't know.
Did they get around to it?
Maybe.
I haven't seen
Maybe.
it yet.
Who knows?
I don't know.
So next, Last Hope comes out on July 10th, 2006.
Yeah.
And for those who aren't familiar with it, Last Hope is a AES cartridge, or is it?
Yeah,
it's
well,
AES.
It's AES originally. They were going to try and make an MVS of it too, but it's just too costly.
So it's going to be a Neo Geo AES and a Neo Geo Neo Geo CD version for those who pre-purchased the AES.
Yeah, they get that as a bonus.
And then,
Of course, after you drop $700 on an AES card, the CD is really not that much.
And they're also planning on a Dreamcast release, and was it a GameCube release as well?
That'll only happen if they do all the Dreamcast release.
Okay.
Because that's generally the standard is you do a Dreamcast release, and if enough of those sell, well, then boom, you can move it to a higher system.
And for those who aren't familiar with Last Hope, it is a basically like a bunch of just guys from Germany who decided to just make a game.
Yeah, they make their own shoot 'em up. It's pretty much like a cross between Gradius and Last Resort with a little bit of R-Type mixed in, but it's really pretty and it's very technical.
And probably very difficult.
Yeah, it looked really difficult, but it looked just beautiful in motion. And even the background music was pretty well done. I was surprised how well they did putting all this together.
So,
and as a bonus, if you have home carts out there that you don't like, or if you can get your hands on just the case, you can actually send them the case and save yourself, I think, $170 on the price of the game, because that's part of the cost. That's how hard it was to get those cases. So you can literally get the game for like $400 to $500 with your own case.
Yeah, but that's still pretty high dollar for a game.
They couldn't find a Chinese company willing to make them $10,000 for a nickel a piece.
No, plus they'd have to remake the entire form because nobody has those forms anymore.
That can't
SNK
be that
was
hard.
The only one.
Well, I mean, you take
should
an
have a talk with
existing
them
one
because
and
they
like,
couldn't find a way to do it. So
okay.
They might appreciate your input.
Next, and this is just kind of. Oh, sorry. Give me more
speaking of new games for ancient systems, is Beggar Prince ever going to come out?
Actually, Beggar Prince is out.
Oh, they've actually started shipping them out to people?
Yes, they have. Beggar Prince is a game that came out some time ago. It was like a Chinese game for the Genesis.
Yeah.
And then someone just bothered to translate it. And they're selling it right now for, $40, $50?
Like $45, I think.
Yeah, it ends up being about $50 with shipping.
Yeah. From what I understand, I think Beggar Prince is now out and shipping.
Cool. So, yeah, RPG for the Genesis.
Yeah.
Comes with case, manual, everything.
Amazing.
I wonder if they'll give you, the real case like they had, or those replacement, cardboard cases that the Genesis had, laid into their cycle.
Sleeve, yeah. I don't know. Hey, anything's possible. I saw there's 10 new homebrews coming out for the Dreamcast real soon, so, I mean...
They're just cardboard re-releases of Altered Beast with a different sticker on the front of it.
Yeah. Not enough of those cartridges around. No,
it would be the first company to do it.
No, what they probably did was they took a game that kind of sucked, Green Dog the Surfer Dude or something like that.
I don't know. Altered Beast is wholly appropriate for all this stuff. Rise from your grave.
Yeah.
And be re-stickered.
So, next show's topic: when is a game system really dead? So, next, the game
it's called the 3DO.
Yeah.
That was dead when it started. What are you talking about?
Or the Jaguar.
Something to do with $600
Jaguar had the
tag.
Mutant Penguin game.
Or when you're made by a company owned by the Swedish mob.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Next, the Game & Watch comes out to the Nintendo DS in Japan only, and you cannot buy it in any store. You actually have to get Mario Club points to buy it. So for those who really like playing old LCD games with 2 frames of animation, they have a deal for you.
Save up your points.
Yeah.
This is just like when I had Transformers.
It's actually about 500 points, and for each Nintendo game you get, it's 50 points. So you got to buy 10 of those games to even get that.
Yeah, but I want to know if it also has the watch mode.
Yeah, as far as I know, it is game and watch. But then again, the Nintendo DS already has a watch mode. So,
jeez.
Anyway, next, more PlayStation 3 online functionality, which means nothing.
Yeah, it's pretty useless. Still.
So more than 0?
Yeah.
Is that what it means?
It's official. We have more functionality. Roger, more functionality. What the hell does that mean?
They're working up to copying every feature of Xbox Live. Hopefully they'll have the full list by launch.
Now, what was interesting is that
Of the PS4.
Now what Sony said, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, John, is that with Xbox Live you have a centralized server for everything, but Sony is saying, okay, for every company that's going to do an online game, they're in charge of their own.
It looks like Sony is like divesting themselves of responsibility.
Yeah, they don't want to maintain anything either, so they'll force the companies themselves to deal with it.
Well, they're still going to have to maintain the infrastructure and the whole buying stuff and looking at trailers and all that shit, but they'll force the game companies to manage their own servers.
That could be good or bad.
Well, it means,
it
means they will all be equally bad instead of Live, where whenever you go to play an EA game, you end up in sucky EA land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
God, EA sucks.
All right. Next, the ESRB, the Entertainment Software Ratings Board, announces a commitment to parents. Hopefully this commitment will be hitting them over the heads with Bibles telling them, take care of your own kids!
Yeah. Grow some balls and manage your children.
Is this in any way related to the contract with America?
No.
It seems like the same sort of thing. We will give you this list of things that we say we're going to do, and then, well, what's the next topic?
Yeah. If for those of you who are frequent viewers of The Daily Show, Jon Stewart actually did a feature on gaming, all the congressional stuff with gaming called Player Haters, and it was very amusing.
Yeah, I did see that clip come to the... I love the little clips of the congressman. Yeah, I'm an old school gamer.
Yeah,
I played Pong.
And he starts making Pong sound effects. Have you seen that clip yet, Steve?
I have not. I
Oh,
haven't even heard
you need
of
to
it.
see it.
Man.
I gotta go look this up.
That was on Kotaku.com, I think.
I was too busy looking up cover Iron Maiden bands last night.
It's very funny.
Oh, jeez.
I think
That's the exact reason why we have so many problems with the bridging the gap between those in the power and those that actually play.
It
You know,
sounds
those in
pretty
the
much.
gaming.
John and I were at one of our other friends' house watching cable, and we saw this documentary on the history of heavy metal, in which they showed the PMRC hearings that Dee Snider was at, along with Tipper Gore and stuff. This seems very similar to, we're going to make a big noise, we're going to save your kids, and then
Has the same guy.
put a sticker right on.
Has the same guy. Jack Thompson was part of the Two Live Crew thing.
Well, this
back
kind of
then.
predates that.
Well,
This is like
that's-
1984.
Who knows?
Two
He may
Live
have
Crew
had
was
something to do with that,
still
too.
going through English class in high school at the time.
Yeah.
Or failing to go through as the case may be.
They were failing through it.
They weren't they from Florida?
That would make sense, because I think that's where Jack Thompson's from.
Once again, righteous indignation catapults a mediocre act into stardom.
I think the ESRB is just trying to make the commitment to let people know that all of video gamedom is not represented by the image of a man beating the hooker to death with a baseball bat.
Yes. So our last news bit is Uwe Boll makes an offer to face critics of his films in a boxing ring. Now, there's a little background
All
to
at
this.
once?
Yeah, we
I know
wish.
he can be a pretty angry German when he wants to.
So here's the
5 million people box Uwe Boll at once. This is something I would actually pay to see.
Well, the premise of this is that Uwe Boll pretty much got so irritated with all the bad press surrounding his movies, well, for whatever reason, like, oh, maybe they suck.
Yeah, maybe you should try making a good movie for a change.
And he decided that any critic of his movie could now face him in a boxing ring
It's
and
like the
battle
Steven
it out.
Seagal challenge when he said, others
Well-
said they were better than him, and he's like, well, let's fight.
Well, what had happened was that there's been a lot of people take him up on the offer, including one of the heads of somethingawful.com, Lotax, is actually got a confirmation from Uwe Boll saying, "Yeah, let's duke it out." So
Of course, the funny part about this, too, is that Yui Bowl boxed for like 10 years or something, so he's actually pretty good at it. And the whole thing is a total publicity stunt because his next film is going to be about boxing, and part of this is signing over the rights to taping such match so that it can be put into his movie.
Speaking on related terms, we were watching the trailer of the Dungeon Siege movie, and let's just say, did you ever watch Godzilla Final Wars with us?
no, but
Godzilla Final Wars is basically, we took Godzilla and then we took every filmmaking convention in sci-fi and action for the last 10 years and rammed it into a Godzilla film. This is, we took every action adventure D&D like thing, Gladiator, Lord of the Rings, everything like that, and we mashed it into a thing and labeled Dungeon Siege in little print on the bottom.
What was the main title for
Dungeons
that?
and Dragons.
That would be In the Name of the King, a
Right.
Dungeon Siege tale.
In like 4-point
hell?
type.
In
for the
4-point
Dungeon
type. I mean,
Siege tale.
there's the huge title. The main title is In the Name of the King, and in very, very small type at the bottom, it says A Dungeon Siege Tale. And it is directed by Yui Boll.
And so imagine if Lord of the Rings was done by somebody who,
Sucks.
yeah.
Every day, every hour, every minute just sucks.
I mean, it's really awful. It's so derivative, it's funny.
does it have dungeons and does it have sieges? That's the
Well, it
important-
does have sieges. It
Didn't
also
see any
apparently
dungeons.
ripped almost wholesale the Siege of Helm's Deep.
So did he take footage from the old Tom Hanks movie, Mazes and Monsters, and just spliced it in?
There are
Speaking
orcs.
of previous generations getting upset about their child's hobbies.
I mean, really. I mean, they're.
How can you be upset? We had to use Crayola crayons just to see the numbers in the dice. What are you talking about?
I believe if you go to www.inthenameoftheking.com, you can see this trailer.
Okay, as long as it doesn't redirect me to a Christian website, I'll be fine.
Well, probably not.
Okay.
No guarantees, though.
That's in the name of the Father, I think.
No.
In the name of the Lord.
So, that's it for our news bits. None of us are going to be fighting Yui Boll anytime soon, although we would really like to.
That's what sniper rifles are for.
I haven't actually watched any
Vote
of
from
his
the
films.
rooftops. Oh.
I have been able to take it as a given that they suck horribly and not actually had to verify this personally.
No, you're pretty safe. We had to sit through House of the Dead, so
Oh God, what a horror!
Did you have
It's
to
definitely
reload?
the right genre.
There was, we did watch it with light guns. There were light guns available for using during the game.
I mean,
when the zombies appeared.
when you
Thank you, Mad
use
Cats.
when you use the actual video game footage
Yes,
in the movie.
in the movie.
But here's the thing: the video game footage that they use was off the attract mode of the arcade. So when you saw the footage, it said "insert credit" on it,
Yes, it did.
and it had the green blood. I'm like, what?
Also,
the
the
horror or comedy. I don't know.
the depth of suckiness for this movie was
And there's
shown
some-
by there's a scene where they're fighting lots of zombies and they go into this pseudo bullet time, but it's cheap bullet time because they didn't have the setup to do real bullet time. So it's basically
money.
just people standing in still with the cameras going around them. So it's kind of like this 3D sort of pick your character type thing. And then there's actually a part in that very same scene where somebody like throws a grenade or something and blows up a zombie. You can see the springboard that the zombie jumps off of before he goes over the rock. It's like
Great.
editing, any sort of editing. I mean, come on. All you needed was cut out 1 second, and the stunt would have totally sucked. So
I'll try and put something in front of it, like sand or a rock.
Or maybe a boom mic.
and even more
Maybe a
sad,
lightning
the end
kit.
was set up like it was supposed to have a sequel.
Which it is going to have a sequel.
Yes, but it's direct to video, pretty sure.
Can't imagine why.
So, I mean,
I
at
can-
this
I can
point,
tell
has
you.
he just gotten enough free publicity for sucking so hard that he's reached, like, the bare minimum to start putting out,
He's like the
crappy
Roger
movies on
Corman
no
level or
budget?
something like
Yeah.
that. He must have gotten
He's gotta be
enough
far beyond
publicity
that.
that he doesn't have to rely on people exploiting German tax loopholes. So
He could start making good movies.
No.
Which probably
that
won't
will not happen.
Yeah.
No.
Talking about reaching for the stars.
All right, so next we're going to go through our game topics, and the first one is just going to be a general discussion, and I call it a fucking video games politics discussion.
Well, you've covered the movie politics.
Yeah.
So is it going to be about the politics of video games about fucking?
Well, if those games came out in this country, but I don't think they. Well,
they almost did.
yeah.
There's not a lot of
Well,
politics.
well, sex in games is bad, but violence, it's okay.
Sex and politics. Yeah, it's bad too.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you beat a homeless person to death. It's only when you beat a hooker to death that it gets to be a problem.
Well, you see, the hookers are contributing to the economy of the local. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you're saying a bum buying liquor isn't contributing to the economy?
Well, not so much because they're only buying Old English.
Yeah.
It costs like $1, and really, the guy who's buying fries over at McDonald's is contributing more than that. So.
Okay. So
in the end, we're contributing more to the economy.
Plus, the bum buying the Old English is also using up more petroleum.
Yeah.
Bad alcohol joke.
yeah. All right.
Come on, Jesus.
Not only that, the hookers don't pee in the corners.
Well,
Unless you pay
Only
more.
if you pay them to.
that's in the patch.
Another 50 gets you a yellow shower.
No. So.
Wait, why does it cost more?
Hey, it's a specialty. It's like an extra service, It's something she had to work at to do in front of people.
Oh, that's
I
where
don't
the
know.
Old English comes in.
Oh.
All right, Governor, pee in the corner for an extra 50. Smells Old English is like, I can feel the malt liquor. Damn.
So back on topic,
that
if that's
show.
even possible. So video game politics. So what the hell is wrong with Congress? What the hell?
Too much power?
Well, okay.
We put them in office.
Hello, children. Can you spell oligarchy? I knew you could.
But Jon Stewart basically called Congress a bunch of out-of-touch jackasses.
Well, he just had the ability to say it on TV. We were all pretty much thinking it anyways. After some of this shit we've seen lately.
I don't see how this is restricted to video games.
Well, that's true. But seeing as we are a video game podcast,
we only get to
Stick
focus
with
on
the
that
man.
aspect of their being
Stick
retarded.
with the program.
Hey, you pay attention.
yeah, when
With the Midnight Podcast.
we can talk about
Mom at Midnight.
we can talk about other things when we become, say,
Politicians?
diehard abortion radio or something like that.
I'm all for the baby killing. It's a good time.
Well, where else are you going to get your reagents? I mean, come on, really. Do you think you can just go down to the corner store and buy baby fat candles? No.
Gotta make them yourself.
Yeah.
In the old days.
Well, this conversation's pretty much gone down the drain, hasn't it?
Well, do you have guidance for this conversation other than politics and video games?
Well,
It's fairly
It's like the
broad.
guidance.
oh,
Still
okay.
on
Well,
this
well,
and going to it
first of
tomorrow,
all, okay, we just had in Louisiana where they tried to pass the violent video game law, which they were classifying video games as pornography.
Isn't this like the 7th state that has tried to do that? I mean, I don't even. There's been a bunch of these, and they've all been struck down in the courts.
Well, no,
I-
there was the one where in was it Minneapolis where it got passed through, but they worded it so differently that it.
Yeah, it was a different deal. It wasn't like this. Once again, brings to mind the PMRC thing where they were calling glam rock porn rock and trying to classify heavy metal music as pornography.
Which
I
is
mean,
the
this is
exact same
yeah,
thing they're doing.
It's old hat. They're just
They-
doing
yeah,
it over again.
Yeah, if they could just bridge
You know?
that gap and make people think
It's-
like they do, then it's it's evil.
It's
doesn't
just
matter.
all it is let's identify something that's awful for our children, so that we can protect the children.
Well, awful by their standards.
Well, yeah, what they think, but they're going to do it for the children. They're going to gather funds to save the children to get elected to office to sprue the children.
I was waiting for John to go for the children, but he looks pretty
That's
tired
where the We
right
Are
now.
the World reference.
I just can't work up the energy anymore. I mean,
You've used it all.
Congress is burning them out little by little, man.
they're just so
No
dumb.
one,
The wall is insurmountable.
Wizard needs
The hurdle
food.
of stupidity cannot be overcome.
It really is. It's not something where it's a rational discussion will ever result in anything different. It's basically either these people who are trying to do this are basically removed from the political arena, or it just keeps recycling over and over on itself with the newest thing that they.
That's what it is, though. It's
can
exactly
push a
what
button
it
on.
is they're looking for our generation's rock and roll music, our generation's dancing. It's every decade they go pick on something they think is attacking children and youth in general, and it just happens to be video games.
The ironic thing is that, probably demonstrably, the last 6, 7, 8 years of heavy metal music has been angrier and more violent and more misanthropic than anything in the 80s. But apparently it's old hat now. It's not a shocker enough of a issue for them to, get news play, basically. Now it's, for some reason, video games that existed 20 years ago.
We covered that topic
longer
10 years
than
ago.
that.
We can't do it again.
Well, yeah, in the political arena, you can't have reruns, except like now when you have a rerun.
And video games have been around since the 70s. Actually, earlier than that.
Yeah.
So really what we need to do is invent a new fad that's even more offensive for today's children, so they'll stop worrying about video games.
Naked hula hooping.
I think the whole
Running for
baby killing
Congress.
thing was probably where we needed to go there.
Okay, so we just need to start a new fashion trend in baby killing.
Yeah.
They're easier to kill when they're young than when they're older.
Can't run as fast.
Well, you haven't invested as much in them yet,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It's more like a tax break.
The opinions of John do not necessarily reflect the views of Diehard Gamer Radio or anyone else in the world.
He has like 1/4 of it, though. Maybe he's like the misinformed quarter.
He's the devil's advocate.
Yeah. Maybe killing brought to you
he's
by
right,
John.
though. I've been trying to think of, and I've thought down this path before, what could possibly come along that would get the PMRC or its successor. I don't actually know if the PMRC still exists, but I think the Parents Resource Center now, it's the TRC.
Something like that.
Whoever it
Republic
is
of
that
China?
took it over from Tipper Gore and her misguided "I'm going to save the children" crapola. There's got to be some fad on the horizon that they're going to find more offensive and have to speak out against to save us all from ourselves. But I can't think of anything because everything's so innocuous and just kind of boring.
Well, it's because you're not thinking like they do.
That's
But I can't
because,
even.
It's because you've been on the internet.
I'm not saying there's
Maybe
logic.
that's what it is.
There's no
Yeah.
logic.
There's going to be
on the
legislation
side.
against 4chan. That's what's going to be the next thing. In before ban.
So, yeah, and
In before criminalization.
of
And
course,
then it flashbacks to that gif with the manatee saying, "Can we be friends?" And the shark's like, "No."
yeah, and of
Or
course,
the huge manatee.
this is all just happening right around an election year for some strange, bizarre reason. I don't know why.
Yeah,
Oh, this
I mean,
and all the troops are going to be pulled out of Iraq in the next
Oh yeah,
year.
that's our troops
but
are
they're not.
our
Oh, but
troops
they
are
are.
fighting
Oh, but they're
for
not.
better video game ratings.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, because
The ESRB has been so ineffective at that.
yes,
Yeah.
or parents are figuring out, oh, I might have to read what's on this label.
Instead of just buying Jimmy what he wants and giving it to him while he goes and plays in the little room.
Yeah.
Not only that, but they're starting to find studies now that kids are playing so many games and playing on their iPods and they're texting so much they're having straining
RSI.
issues with their repetitive straining issues
Well,
with their hands and wrists and
Ergonomics is definitely an afterthought, except in a very
well,
niche market.
they're already starting to point the blame at technology, and it's like, wait a minute, anything can hurt you if you do it too much. It's moderation.
Well, not only that, but no one put a gun to their head and told them to buy the technology. They bought it on their own accord. So
Yeah, but
Yeah,
if they
what
don't
you
play
do-
video games, they won't be cool.
Well,
oh, wait.
Xbox is the only one out there. Actually, Microsoft is the only one out there that's actually putting a warning label inside the Xbox 360 now and saying,
Actually, most video game companies, at least
Yeah.
in the first
Well-
page of the instruction booklet, do warn of repetitive stress injury, epilepsy, and possible social
I was reading in the
awkwardness.
paper today that Microsoft's is the most
Well, they've got
obvious
the
and
little-
covers the
Inability
most
to
things.
see naked women.
Well, we've had
But
the warning in the
Microsoft
front of
actually-
those for a long time that is, don't play this game.
Well, it's not just warnings, though. Microsoft has some sort of guide book or guide pamphlet that comes in there and tells you things to do, like stop every 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah,
walk
Nintendo
around,
has
look
that
around.
too.
And don't sit too close to the television or watch it in the dark.
Well, I mean,
I
anime's had that for a while now. Where like,
Well,
like, here's this, la la la. Don't sit too close to the screen, yada yada yada.
Well,
It's like,
that was all from Pokemon. That one episode of Pokemon that don't air anymore.
Kids were like frantically flailing in front
Well,
of the couch
if you flash a light that's alternating red and blue,
And by
at
kids,
faster
we
than,
mean
like,
like
you know-
20 kids out of
Yeah.
100 and some million.
yeah,
yeah. It's like not really like a pervasive health risk here.
yeah. So that's it for our politics discussion.
Aww.
Well, unless you have something else to
She
say.
was criminy.
There's got to be something even more offensive than baby killing we could talk about.
Well, I don't know. I mean, really,
Placenta.
I mean, other than
Snatching the
some some congressman coming home to watch it, see his teenage kid looking at bait on 4chan. I mean, what else could there possibly be that's more offensive? We're basically in the 80s again. I mean, we're just we're trying to get our way
Except
out of
the clothes aren't as
Vietnam,
cool.
And no, the clothes are the same. You can buy, as I say, you can buy the Flashdance outfit pre-made at Target now. I mean, really. I mean, the dress is the same. I've seen. We have an intern at work
And shopping around
who's
there,
like,
Steve.
yeah,
Does it come with a bucket of glitter?
yeah. But there's an intern at work who actually,
know all those
when
DVDs
he's
that they
not
can
at
sell?
work, he flips up his collar of his little polo shirt, and I'm like,
Pretty in Pink?
what the hell's with that?
Does he wear a loose tie with it that hangs
He's-
down?
Does he have an
Yeah,
alligator and solve mysteries
does.
in Miami?
He does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, it's like it's. I'm trying to think of what
Breakfast Club?
you could possibly. Well, they're redoing 16 Candles. They're doing a sequel to 16 Candles, which is too bad because Marley Ringwald
32 and
not
loving
as
it.
attractive as she was when she was younger.
Yeah, so
They have CG
32
for that.
candles now? What?
Yeah, no, she's probably up to about 41 or
No, it's
43.
I think it's just 32 Candles. I think is what they're calling it.
She can't.
Yeah.
She's older than that.
Well, it doesn't
Granted
matter.
that she wasn't
She wasn't
probably
16 when
they
she did
it,
16
yeah.
Candles.
I hate that when
What are they
it's
gonna do,
supposed to be a
64
joke and
candles
it turns
next?
out to be what they actually decided to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
It's the worst punchline ever.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on. Why are certain genres of games disappearing from the video game landscape? And we've noticed that we don't see as many fighting games or as much shoot 'em ups or shmups as we used to.
Well,
So
I think a lot of fighting games the big reason is fighting games used to be pretty much just two-dimensional, and once they went three-dimensional, it took longer to make them, and the R&D into making them, and
Well, and also there's the whole thing that you keep making slight variations on the same theme, and there's not a lot of
there
people that
isn't
are very
really-
interested in it.
Actually, I do agree with that to a certain point, but I think a lot of it is because with fighting games, at least, there was a social aspect to fighting games, and I think because of the decline of the arcade is why we're not seeing as many.
But you
Because
can play those online now.
well, if they ever come out with them, Street Fighter has yet to come out on Xbox 360. It's still in the process of coming out. But I do understand you can play them online, but
Well,
I don't.
and
It's
also
not the
if you're-
same though.
Yeah.
You're
it's
talking
not the
about
same.
playing Street Fighter. How old is Street Fighter?
15 years old.
Yes. I rest my case.
Actually, I believe that the core to this argument really is the rise of the casual gamer. The casual gamer does not play fighters long enough to master the game. And that's really where it gets really fun. It's when you're mastering a character. And it's the same thing with shooters. The casual gamers don't play shooters. What do the casual gamers play? Halo, sports
Madden,
games.
Well,
I mean,
actually,
really,
that isn't even casual.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the mainstream gamers. I mean, you get down to casual, and they're playing PopCap games.
Well, right, but the
Hearts.
point,
Jewel
the really
on
the point
360.
being is that the hardcore gamers that grew up playing these games are a very, well, not super small, but they're a large minority of the video game population, playing population now. And so really the market's going, well, we could make lots of games for these guys that will buy them, but there's not as many of them, or we can make all these other games that, well, they're just kind of little variations on the old version, but you know what? The mainstream gamer or the casual gamer, they kind of like to remember the stuff that they played before. It seems similar. It gave them good feelings the first time. So Let's make it.
Yes, because I want to constantly remember that time where I died in R-Type 50 billion times.
Which brings up another point. These games are fundamentally based on repetition.
Well, technically, most video games are based on repetition.
Yeah, one company comes up with a hit, and then about 5 other companies hop on the boat 3 months later and start making the same thing.
When you go through like a modern action-adventure title, you're going to see a lot of different landscapes, you're going to see different puzzles. There's a lot of new stimuli getting thrown at you.
But
not playing with the same group of 8 characters across 8 different backgrounds again and again and again. I'm not saying these games aren't good. I enjoy them too. I'm just saying this is a niche market.
I think there is kind of an ADD thing more now than there was back in our generation, that kids just don't put as much time. They don't care as much.
I don't think it's so much of a...
Well, I also think there's no competition factor in it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no incentive for them to get better.
Yeah.
There's also this thing too. I mean, we bring up Street Fighter you're talking about there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for you guys, that's probably the best 2D fighter ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they did that 15 years ago.
Well, Third Impact came out, It was like 7
Yeah, it's only like
years
5,
ago.
6, yeah, something
and that
like that.
was like the best iteration. It was like the peak of the Street Fighter.
And seriously, what percentage of the people who would play that game, would have the history to be able to tell them apart, the different versions of it? I mean,
very, very small population.
But the same thing holds true today. There's people that, you put Halo 2, and Halo 3 together, they can tell them apart. But, to someone like me who doesn't play those games, it's like,
sure, but the difference in population is huge.
Well, yeah.
The number of people that bought Halo 2 versus the number of people who bought, probably every Street Fighter ever made.
And there is much more of a difference between the FPSs now, too, because they're riding the technology curve. 2D games still look the same today as they did 15 years ago. And
people like pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, more systems now today, too, especially even arcade systems are actually pushing towards 3D and whatnot, so 2Ds actually don't look as good on the newer systems.
Which is what I'm saying about
with PS.
Well, it's got nothing to do with the system. That's probably got everything to do with, there aren't any good 2D artists still working because,
Well,
they can't get work.
if you look at, like, say, Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow, that looks great. But, you are right. If you put that next to something that's 16-bit, there's going to be a slight difference as far as, how many colors on screen and whatever, but essentially the game is about the same graphically and how it plays. But with the games disappearing from video game landscape, I think, at least with the fighting part, we do see the newer games, 3D and everything like that.
DOA 4.
Yeah, but we don't see as many as we did before.
Well, instead we're seeing a few of the best titles. And we're seeing the AAA.
That's debatable.
That's debatable. Dead or Alive 4 is a solid game, but not the best.
Well, they're not going to put out DOA, whatever you think the best is, again. That's just not going to happen anymore. You can do that for, you can re-release Metal Slug because the people who buy Metal Slug will keep buying Metal Slug.
We're the few games that we're seeing are the AAA titles. They're the ones that they can put enough money behind because they are sequels. They have brand name recognition. They know they'll still sell even though it's a niche.
They're assuming that because people bought the prior one, they'll buy the newer one.
And they like boobies.
But that doesn't, like what I'm saying, though, that doesn't necessarily make them the best one. A series generally has one game out of 4 or 5 that it makes that is actually the pinnacle. And a lot of series, unfortunately, are like the second game in the series is the best. Like Samurai Showdown 2, Fatal Fury 2, it was the pinnacle. And then after that, they just changed a lot of little things and kept playing with it and trying to drag it out. But it was
by and
never
large,
as good as it was then.
Your mainstream gamer these days, your casual gamer these days, doesn't have that sort of institutional memory of what the old games were.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think
they probably
just
haven't
want to buy
played the whole series.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think it's more of a case of ADD, though. It's like, hey, I just want the newest thing that looks the best.
Yeah.
And
I don't know
it's
so
on
much
my
as a
newest
thing of
system, and it's the easiest for me to play.
I don't think so much it's an ADD thing. I think it's I like new things thing.
Well, also you have to keep in mind, and I'll probably talk about this more in a later podcast, but there is a definite gaming generation gap. For all of us here, our first systems was arguably either a ColecoVision or Atari 2600 or maybe an NES.
Intellivision.
Yeah.
Pong.
And the thing
Pong.
And the thing is, after the video game crash and after the 16-bit era, there was a new generation of gamers, and they
That was
didn't
the
have any
arcade
history
gamer.
of any of these previous video game systems until the PlayStation, and their PlayStation was their very first game system. And these kids that had their PlayStation as their first game system are now growing up, and their only experience with games is from the PlayStation on, where
Yeah.
we have like everything.
We've got the
And-
NES and Super NES and everything in between. Yeah.
But you're also saying this is a bad thing. I mean, so your genre is being marginalized. They're still making them. They're still out there.
Not in this country.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but
It's more
see, that's
made
why
in
this is
Japan.
Diehard Gamer Radio, because slightly more. That's the thing. People who play video games these days, the mass majority of the video game buying market, they're not obsessed with video games. That's not a major hobby for them. It's I don't have a whole lot to do tonight, so I'm going to play Madden.
They
Or I'm gonna
buy
play this.
like 3 games a year.
Yeah. I mean, this is a totally different,
And they're also I think,
population.
they're edging more towards the live market where they can play online with friends, and it's just easier to pick up a sports title where you know your next 3 neighbors will play it too, and boom, you can go play some football online.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate,
Well,
but
do you
the
remember
days
when
of
you
the
were a
arcade
kid?
are over, and the days of sitting at home and arcading over your live connection is.
Also, do you remember when you were a kid? Do you remember how you found out about games? You found out what the kid who was a year older had.
Yeah,
You go, ooh, that's cool. I want
cool.
what he's got.
Or you saved up your pennies for issue 7 of EGM.
I saved
or
up my
Game Pro.
pennies for a Tiger game.
Yeah, Tiger Electronics.
Yeah.
Little, like,
And
So
free
I could
motion
play the
thing.
Double Dragon version, the Tiger version
No,
of
we
Double
saved
Dragon.
up our money for those mini Donkey Kong arcade machines.
God.
Yeah.
Wow! I
Those
like
things
totally
were
don't
like
remember that.
100 and 150
Oh my God.
bucks for one of those.
I like
little things.
those were like the Sears catalog. Where
Yeah.
You can see I'm like going, that's wow.
There's a mini Pac-Man.
Excuse me, I'm having like this little nostalgic whiplash thing going on here. Holy cow!
So as it's gone mainstream, though, it's the same thing now. Instead of being kids looking at what the other one's got, now around the water cooler, and somebody starts talking
Not
about
even
the new version of the
And
sports
it's a
game.
virtual water cooler.
Well,
Yeah, it's
no.
a-
Someone just
But
modeled a
people-
3D room with
It
a
is-
water cooler.
It
in
is
Yeah, we're
so
talking over-
mainstream.
we're
I
talking
have
over
literally heard
messengers
people who
now.
are not gamers talking about games around the water
Oh
cooler.
yeah, I mean, 2 guys at work that I know. One guy's in his 50s, another guy's in his late 40s. Totally not gamers. Both got kids, have grandkids or whatever. They're talking about. So I was playing Half-Life 2 yesterday. I'm like, huh? It's like, so did you ever finish Doom 3? And I'm like, my mind's blowing here. It's just this really weird thing because it's so much more pervasive into the culture, which is going back to the politics thing. Why they get so much mileage out of this? Because there's more people actually involved and know things about video games as opposed to in the 80s when it was like, Legend of what? So,
Well, not only that, but they're actually making games too that more apply to our generation and even older. Like Golden Tee golf. I've seen so many guys addicted to playing golf on the arcade that it's just not even funny.
well, that's because they're trying to win a lot of money off of that
Well, I
game.
wouldn't say those are all, but I mean, even just the casual guy playing at the bar, with his buddies, drinking, smoking, and playing on the
Playing video
golf.
games.
Yeah, it's
Drinking,
like, wow.
smoking, and playing video games. Huh?
Actually, I wouldn't be surprised right now if there's actually more people buying fighters and shooters than there were before. It's just the market's gotten so huge that is just looks like a very small
Numerically,
slice.
people are buying more, but percentage-wise versus the rest of the market,
There's
they're
so
not
many
much.
systems out there now too.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more choice than there was before. Well, I take that back. There was a lot of choice back then. It was just a lot of crap with a lot of choices that were crap,
Yeah.
which led to the video game crash of 1983.
Yeah, but how many games does the PS2 have right now?
A whole
Over
billion.
8,000.
Well,
And
if you
it
count
does-
everything on the PS1 also.
We're
Oh,
talking
God.
like a cream of the crop that's like the great games of the PlayStation games, and then
Those ones with the greatest hit sticker on them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which actually take up a whole bookshelf now.
And those may not be the best. They just may be the top selling.
yeah.
Yeah.
More often than not,
Which,
they are.
honestly, I think is probably the only useful criteria for determining what are the actual best games.
Yeah. Whatever makes a lot of money.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it might not be our personal favorites, but
so back to answering the question, why are certain genres of games disappearing? Just simply lack of interest, lack of knowledge of the
Generation
game,
gap.
generation gap. Anything else you want to add to that?
yeah, my opinion is they aren't.
They aren't.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to ignore his opinion for now.
Empirically and numerically, he's probably right. They're selling more than they were back 10 years ago. But percentage of the market, they're not selling.
And I think the reason why there's the appearance that they're selling more is that simply because they're not making as many, and because the diehard fans are looking for these games, they go out and just buy these games knowing that they don't come out that often.
Yeah, that's definitely the case with shoot-'em-ups.
I think that they probably do sell numerically more than they used to.
No, he's got a point with the shoot-'em-ups, because a lot of shoot-'em-ups that are just barely lucky enough to make it overseas from Japan to here are sold in such low numbers you can't find more than 1 or 2 at your local GameStop, and you have to pre-order it.
Do you know how many 1 or 2 is in every GameStop across the country?
Well, yeah, but it's less than buying 5 or 10 in that store, which you get of multiple other games in there. That's just the point, though. You won't see hardly any of the shooters.
I mean, are you just upset that these shooters and fighters aren't as important and as big a deal as the latest Mad?
You're totally missing the point. The point is there aren't as many of them coming out, so yeah, they always do sell well. And like you're saying, there's so many other games out there, they really all are a smaller percentage. It just seems like there's less of them out there.
Yeah.
Between the fact we don't see half of them make it over here, and then the few that do make it over here don't have a huge print run. And then there's so many other games now, plus portables. Yeah, there aren't that many of them out there, really, so they do sell well.
And, I mean, if you're talking about the 2D stuff, it's because, well, it's obsolete. If you want to play those on the handhelds, because that's a system where you can still make a 2D game and not be dated.
What is it with you in 2D games, man?
He just doesn't like them.
There's nothing wrong with 2D games. It's a fact of the matter. I mean, last podcast, we're not making these games for the PlayStation 3, or we're not making these games for the Xbox 360 because they're not appropriate for the format. That's why they're not getting made. It's because nobody wants
said that originally.
Nobody wants to pay $60 for a 2D game.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, once again, it's the whole thing about mainstream gamers.
Yeah.
Mainstream gamers.
Yeah, but I don't know how long will that last. PlayStation did the same thing when they came out. They denied so many games that were 2D because they wanted nothing but 3D. But
they also didn't bring out any RPGs because they thought there wasn't a market for that.
Yeah, and look at what happened there, like Valkyrie Profile. And
how many 2D games are coming out for the PS2 today? They're printing everything that's out there that has this hugest market ever.
Well, yeah, but now everybody can make 3D games. Back when the PS1 came out originally, there weren't that many programmers making.
Also keep in
You're
mind
not denying the obsolete and dated argument here.
Well, no, I'm just saying that the fact is they always deny it at first, but they eventually put something on their system that is 2D.
Now we also have to keep in mind that we are talking about Sony of America. That's their policy. Sony of Japan doesn't have those types of policies. They'll still release a bunch of 2D games, and they just never come out in this country.
Market for it in Japan.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Well, and the market here, actually, if we're talking about this, is actually a 360 Live Arcade. That's a place where you can go and you can buy a game for $10, and you can get value for your money.
Yeah, that's when it's affordable and worth it.
So anyway, that's it for that topic. Next topic, our fourth quarter video game predictions. And before we go
everything's going to come out at once.
Well,
get it out before Christmas.
OMG Thanksgiving. OMG WTF barbecue penguins polar bear.
Black Friday.
Just a quick. I just want to explain one thing real quick to our audience who may not be familiar with the term fourth quarter. Is basically the last 3 months of the year. So we're talking October, November, December. That's
biggest selling time.
Yeah, typically the busiest time of the year. And John is right that most, if not everything, will be coming out around Black Friday, which is the day after Thanksgiving. Typically the busiest shopping day of the year. But any predictions as to games or systems that you think will probably exceed with the whole PlayStation 3 and Wii? I was waiting for a laugh there, but didn't get one.
I will buy my Wii on Black Friday.
It's entirely
once
possible.
You go black.
They haven't listed it.
Don't. You are too white to be making that statement.
Yeah, but do we have a solid...
Is Guitar Hero 2 coming out in Black Friday?
Probably.
I just saw a cool screenshot from Guitar Hero 2, by the way. There's a shot from the back of a concert, like a small venue, of a bunch of people in the dark holding up lighters. So definitely ballads in Guitar Hero 2.
Do we have a solid date for the Wii, though? I mean, it's entirely possible. They'll put it out in October.
Not yet. They're saying, late September, October, around that time?
I think it's going to come out before Thanksgiving.
I
And
think
I bet they'll
Nintendo's
make
going to try and push to get it out before the PS3.
Oh, no
It
doubt.
doesn't matter though. I mean, for both of those, it's going to be yet another fucked up console launch, and every single console that they can ship, they will sell.
That is true.
Hello, eBay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think any system's going to have a higher advantage? And what about the Xbox
Well,
I think they're
360?
going to
Whatever's
sell
cheaper.
all of them they can ship.
Yeah.
I thought the advantage was for the NES.
I don't know. The 360 might end up getting a boost for the people who go there and can't buy one of the other ones. And
That's
haven't
true.
already bought a
Actually,
360.
Actually, he does make a very good
You
point.
end up falling on whatever's
That
there.
that actually may be Microsoft's strategy to getting it out earlier than everybody else. Well, if we get it out earlier than everybody else, when they launch and everybody runs out, they're like, well, 360's here. They got a lot of games.
And they
It's
got
cheaper.
live support. You can play
You know?
online. And
Yeah.
it works.
That's true. That's actually a very good point. So as far as systems go, it's pretty much going to be tie between PlayStation 3 and Wii, assuming that PlayStation 3
Well-
actually comes out.
Honestly, I bet the big winner for this fourth quarter is going to be the PS2.
Really?
I think this is going to be the end of its life cycle, and we're going to see the last of the generation of games for it.
It's possible,
And
especially
even
if they
though
have
it's
a
not
price
going to get a
drop.
lot of hype, I think that's going to be.
It would be
this
interesting
is
to see if
just
Sony
what they
drops
can
the price
push.
on that too and pushes it down to $99. That would blow those out of there. If you can get a console that's already got a huge library.
I'm
and
not
pay
even
like
talking
$100
about the consoles, though. I mean, just like God of War 2 is going to come out, and we're going to see these excellent games for the PS2, and there's just so many
No, that's what
PS2s
I'm saying,
out
though.
there.
If you've already
That's from
got the
the
good
whole-
games and then you drop the price right before Christmas too and try and push the last of your systems out.
If we go the whole, parents buying for their kids for Christmas thing, that, traditionally was the case. I don't know if that's the case anymore at, video game specialty stores. But, if you have a parent that comes in and says, well, let's see, there is a Wii. I don't know what that is. And
Or
a
maybe they
PS
do, but
yeah.
they don't want their kids playing with one.
No son of mine's going to play with a Wii.
Here's a PS3, and I put a down payment on 2 cars for that. And here's an Xbox 360. Don't we already have an Xbox? Hey, he's got a PS2, doesn't he? These games are like $20 a piece. I can get like 6 of these.
Yeah, not to mention the used games out there.
I mean, as Murdock knows, this is definitely a plausible thought process from a parent buying video games
Yes.
at an EB.
And still at this point in the cycle, I mean, I have definitely heard the conversation many times for looking around going, let's get the PS2 because that entire half of the store is PS2
Yeah.
games.
It really is.
You can't deny a huge library.
Well, that's been the case since, Mac versus PC days for games. I mean, it's like, well,
There's games on a Mac?
yeah. Here's
Yeah, I
2
think
little
there's like
small
6 of
center
them.
racks for a Macintosh, and this whole wall is PC games.
And this shelf right here, this like one shelf that's like right at the top. That's the
Atari
Amiga
ST.
section.
Oh. Atari ST, man. Atari ST.
Yeah. So, any real big selling games? I mean, you mentioned God of War 2.
Guitar Hero 2.
Guitar Hero 2 will probably kill.
They're going to capitalize on the sales of the first games, no doubt.
Final Fantasy 12, no big surprise there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other software predictions?
I don't know. I bet we're not even going to hear about any of that stuff because all the gaming press is probably going to be focused on the war in the next generation.
Yeah. But I can see Guitar Hero, probably even Twilight Princess being.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Guitar Hero is totally one of those mainstream gamer things. Where you
a
can
great
play
party
it on
game.
easy,
Yeah.
and anybody can play that game.
Well, not anybody.
Well, almost.
Not me.
Anybody that's drunk enough.
Then that is funny because you're the only person I know that can't play it on easy.
I've never played
I
the
can't
game.
play it on easy.
Well, you can play it on easy. You don't do as well as you do on the higher difficulty levels, but you can
But-
play the game on
Yeah.
easy.
I honestly do better in medium than I do on easy, too. Easy
Well,
is okay,
yeah.
and it's standard, but I'm psyched for medium.
But there's been all sorts of non-gamers that I've been able to put that guitar in their hands, and they want to play it because you got this cool plastic guitar.
I
Sooner or
will.
later, they'll pick up the axe.
I will.
They need to put out a bass. They really do. I mean, for the whole, you're going to get to play
or possibly a
different stuff.
trout or a red snapper.
Yeah. Very tasty.
I will mention this right now, probably get a lot of boos and hisses from my co-hosts.
I'm going to hiss early.
I have never played Guitar Hero.
See,
I have not even touched it.
Yeah, and you're sitting like 10 feet away from a copy.
We're gonna play Guitar Hero after this, and you're gonna play it.
No, I'm not.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
No, because it will be
We only have one
made.
guitar, don't we?
Yeah.
It would be made of fail
Well, yeah,
and poo.
that part
Maybe I
guitar
don't
is
want you
down.
touching my guitar.
I don't even want
Wow,
you to get anywhere near me now.
All these buttons are yellow. That's corn. What are you?
Guitar is brown.
That's where the brown note comes from.
Diarrhea is like a storm of notes coming through your intestines.
And wrenching out your anus.
Rectum.
Damn near killed him.
Don't even know.
So yet another podcast. Just
Down the
go
tubes.
right to poo.
Up in flames.
All right.
Burns,
All right.
burns. The Congress they do nothing.
And I'm going to bet we're going to see the same thing with the PS2 right here because, like last year, that was pretty much the last batch of games for the Xbox. You know, it was like
Yeah.
all the really quality AAA stuff that was going to come out. You know, everybody pushed to get it out for the last holiday season while the console was still relevant.
Any predictions on portable?
I think
This is
the
probably gonna be
DS
the
will
best
continue
season.
to do amazingly well.
Yeah, it's now that they're both out and recognized, and there's even a second DS out. I mean, it's like this is.
And
gonna
the
be
second
best
DS
season
is sold
ever.
out still.
Yeah, it's it's not going to be a hard thing to find or hard thing to sell. I mean, those things sell themselves.
Okay. Should I edit that?
Who let the goose in?
I think your ship's coming in.
I think they also hiss.
Ooh, hiss.
Are we having allergy issues, John?
Are you kidding
yeah.
me? This is like the fucking worst week for allergies ever.
I
You
was
don't-
okay this week, but Friday was. Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh,
Back
man,
back to
Sunday
Diehard
was, like,
Allergy
dead.
Radio.
I was so wiped, yeah.
So, okay, those are our predictions for fourth quarter, such as they are. Next, we're going to do some quick game discussion. And we're going to start with, we're going to discuss our favorite shoot 'em up or shmup games. And I will answer for Steve because I'm sure he's going to say R-Type.
No. Actually, my
Oh,
favorite,
no!
My
I got
favorite
owned!
My favorite one actually was Life Force.
I knew it.
Yeah. Can't deny
I
the force.
don't play a lot of shoot 'em ups, and Life Force really I got a lot of mileage out of it. So up, down, etc., etc.
You will fail at life if you cannot recite the whole thing.
I can do it.
Let's hear it.
Up, down, left, right, BA, and I always played with a friend. So select and then start.
Steve wins the internet.
And fudge.
A wiener is you.
So, okay, well, as Steve only has one favorite shmup, I know you have.
I like
a bunch.
Forbidden World,
Oh,
but only in the arcade because if you played it at home, you didn't have the cool rotator stick.
you mean Forgotten Worlds?
That one too.
Yeah.
You know
I will
what I'm
not
talking
be
about.
defeated by a paramecium.
Well,
Yes, I
you
do
know.
know what game you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, and well, it's not really a shooter. Xenophobe. It's kind of a shooter.
Shoot 'em up.
It's 2D.
Yeah.
Forgotten Worlds is a good one to mention, though, because, you know, that's the one that I really played when I was a kid.
I got so much mileage out of that. Oh, God. Genesis.
Yeah, I think we weared out like.
Damn near
mil-
broke the system.
So I know you've got a bunch of
Oh.
favorite stuff. So
Where do I start? R-Type, Gradius, Last Resort on the Neo Geo, Einhander, Axley. Loved them all. There's so many great shoot 'em ups out there. They all have their own little things that just make the games unique. It's just too many to name.
might be faster to name our least favorite shoot 'em up, but
Does the original Warhawk count as a shooter?
What
on the
about
PlayStation?
3D shooter.
Radiant Silvergun?
I like Warhawk.
Garuga.
Warhawk was pretty fun.
Warhawk it's kind of on the edge there.
yeah,
There's
it's
not a whole
speaking
lot
of
of
the-
sim to it. It's pretty much point your ship at something. And
Yeah, if we
it's
wanna-
more like Panzer Dragoon in that respect.
yeah, because bad shooters will take a very short time. John, do you have any input for this?
John's too busy snorting coke over there into his nose.
Hey, if it gets rid of the allergies, man, I'll do
Yeah.
anything.
Thank you, Mother Nature.
It's like coke, man, but it's natural.
Yeah.
I have fun playing the shooters and all, and I, buy the ones that come out, but it's really not my favorite genre or something that I spend a lot of time playing.
And what is your favorite genre?
My favorite genre. My favorite genre is weird shit that nobody has done before.
Like
Which is going to bring
Dirt
us to our game
mover.
review later on.
Power Shovel.
Yeah.
You should do a review
Like
of Power Shovel.
Yeah.
You need to do a review of Power Shovel.
Old school, there we go.
And Dirt Jockey.
Dirt You do Power Shovel, I'll do Dirt Jockey, won't compare notes.
Yeah, well, yeah, it'll be Diehard Gamer Radio, sponsored by Caterpillar and Komatsu.
Komatsu, yeah.
Dirt Jockey
Caterpillar
just
for the
sounds dirty.
Americans.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but Dirt Jockey just sounds
Well,
wrong.
I
Either
would.
that or a horse racing game.
Yeah. So for me, when I discuss my favorite shoot 'em up games, it would just take too long for me to mention all of them.
I was going to say when you discuss it, we kind of tune out.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, I have to go by like publishers
Yeah.
because I have Cave and Treasure and
Konami.
and Taito.
Yeah.
Even
Taito, my God.
Darius.
Yeah.
and
1943.
That's Capcom.
Is it?
Yep.
Didn't Taito do a 1943 takeoff?
Mm,
I swear they had a World War II.
I think we need to mention Xevious while I'm thinking about this.
Yeah, Namco's Xevious.
Go with Viewpoint for that matter too.
Here's a different kind of question to
Hard.
narrow it down. So, what's your favorite shooter of the last 5 years?
Well, let's see. There's
He
stuff
likes
like
the one with
Cave.
the one with the
Oh.
the pretty anime girls that appear in the background for no apparent reason.
The roses.
Well, those are always good.
Uh,
I like those because Reiko-san from Mushihime-sama.
Mushihime-sama, yeah.
She's. I can't say much because she's only 15 in the game. So.
All characters are 18 unless they appear.
Yeah. She said she was 18 on the website. I couldn't read the Japanese, but that's what I thought it said.
All characters are over the age of consent.
Yeah. In a country you've never heard of. Because they have no age of consent in Antarctica, so that is... Oh, boy.
So we got like
over the
what?
age of consent, ...
Yeah.
So like Ikaruga and Musa,
Mushihime-sama.
something with bugs.
Insect Princess, if you want to make it simple on yourself.
Yeah. Let's go with
Yeah,
American title.
Ikaruga versus Morning Musume fight.
Ikaruga, I liked, but man, it's what I call a puzzle shooter.
Yeah.
It's almost like it almost plays like a puzzle game in a way that you have to be at the right place at the right time and hit the patterns, at the right sections, and it just plays almost like a puzzle game more than a shooter.
Speaking of puzzle shooters, what
a lot
about
of work.
Twilight?
Excuse me?
It always seems like a lot of work.
And memorization.
Yeah, it is a lot of memorization.
What about Twilight? Not Princess.
Oh, you're thinking of
Twinkle Star?
Twinkle Star Sprites.
Yeah, there's an oddball
That's-
shoot 'em up for you.
That's kind of a weird.
that would
That's
fall in your
actually,
vein of oddball games right there.
which is why I am pissed it didn't have a U.S. release.
Yeah, that's kind of a
That
weird,
is unfortunate.
hybrid there.
And
There's
that
one
one-
an American one on the Dreamcast though.
You know, my favorite shooter of all time, Galaga.
That is,
I
yeah,
guess
because
old school. Yeah.
yeah,
We're going
Space
old school. We got to talk about Gyrus.
and Space
Tempest,
Invaders
for that
is
matter.
considered a shooter.
Tempest.
ruled.
Tempest.
Tempest Gyrus.
Does
really the
anybody
same
besides me
concept.
remember the Laserdisc game shooter, where it was like you were behind your ship?
It's called Astron's Call.
Yeah.
Why do I know that?
I don't know, but that was like the easiest game in the world
man,
because you
let's go back
basically
to
had to
the,
hit that whole plane of ships and they all destroyed themselves.
Yeah, that's going back to like Sierra Online.
All I
games.
remember about playing that game is just seeing like a digitized ship in front of all these pre-rendered backgrounds and lots of explosions. That's all I remember.
There were all these live action explosions, but the great thing about that was when you put your coins in and you hit the first player thing, when you warped into wherever you were going, it was the CG sequence from the Genesis project in the Wrath of Khan.
Well, if you're going back to old school like PC, you got to talk Philosoma. And anything by Sierra
that was not my
Online.
favorite. God. There's some
Sounds
shooters
like
that are
there's
just
a
so hard
for
that
that.
just aren't fun
They
anymore.
redeemed themselves on the PS1 though. I think the Philosoma on there was a lot.
Philosoma
better.
was the only game. It only came out on the PS1. Unless you're thinking of something else.
No, I must be thinking of an older. There was
Philosoma
one by
was
Sierra
that-
Online that was based the same way as Philosoma, where you had 6 areas you moved on the PC.
You're
PC
thinking,
shoot 'em up.
what was the one that came before Sylphied?
Yeah, Sylphid, that's it.
Well,
No,
Sylphid was-
Yeah.
no,
Sylphid
Sylphid
had
you-
6 areas that you could
No.
move within the.
Sylphid was-
you could actually
was
run
a
around. You're
scroller.
thinking of the one before that.
And didn't Sylphid let you? Wasn't that like the robot?
Yep,
to ship
you could
thing?
transform.
Yeah.
But no, there was.
no,
But Sylphid was the sequel to the one
Yeah,
that you're thinking
yeah,
of. But I
yeah.
can't remember what it was called.
It was so generic. It only had like 6 areas you could physically move within, and you were moving forward.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember
D,
that.
but yeah,
I remember that. But I
Yeah,
don't remember
because
the name.
I remember the fact it had like 5 discs.
We will look it up and let you all know next
yeah,
week.
Philosoma, not fun. When it becomes like so ungodly hard that it's just no longer
Yeah,
fun.
you start losing interest. Yeah.
Like Viewpoint, even though it's a really cool game,
That's a
I've
true
never seen
diehard
anyone get
shoot.
past level 3 on it.
Yeah.
It's just so hard. I mean, there are people that are like can clear Radiant Silvergun in a quarter, and they play Viewpoint and they get
I think
owned.
it has something to do with the 3D perspective.
You mean it's
really
Viewpoint?
Yeah. Hi-yo! I think it's just something about that perspective. It throws people off, and they can't accurately judge it.
Well, also you're dealing with 3/4 perspective, and the fact that your ship has no hitbox.
Yeah, your ship is the hitbox.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like R-Type.
Yeah, that's harsh.
Yeah, R-Type is harsh.
Yeah.
For those of you who've
That's what
never,
it translates into English. R-type is Japanese for harsh.
yeah, for those of you who've never played an R-Type, here's my Game Pro game tip: be at the right place at the right time all the time. That's
You
pretty
will
much the only.
survive.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Forget
Yeah, you
launch your
don't,
bauble
you don't
off
beat
and-
R-Type. You just survive the game.
yeah. So next we're going to talk about our most gorgeous 2D games ever, and I'm sure John will probably go to the bathroom or make a sandwich or something while we're talking about this.
honk.
Because you're
No, I actually have one I definitely picked for that.
Okay.
Out of This World has always been one of my favorite games, and I always thought it had beautiful animation.
now
and
it is
really enjoyed
vector
that.
graphics, and I might be kind of naive in this, but are vector graphics is that considered a sprite based game?
I don't know if it's. I mean,
I would.
what do you
Well,
mean by sprite based? I mean,
Well, I mean in the traditional
There's
2D
no,
sense.
there are no polygons, I believe, is if what you're like.
Yeah,
Okay.
Vector, yeah.
All right.
The shapes are vectors and it's motion captured, if I remember right.
it was done with rotoscoping, yeah. And I think on the PC version, I don't actually know if the game in real time rendered the vectors onto
don't
the
think
screen or if it had a predefined set of sprites. But the creator of Out of This World, when he did the recent re-release, was actually able to do it in high resolution because still had all the vector data and was able to just increase that.
The man who keeps his games.
Yeah.
Word
Keeps
to
his source
SNK.
He knows where his source code
Yeah.
is.
No, note to
Know your
IREM.
source code.
No, that's note to IREM, who wanted to port R-Type 3 and couldn't find the source code for their own game.
No, it's the same thing for SNK Playmore. They lost all their source code for the Hyper 64 games, and now they can't release them on any other system because they don't.
How do you lose your source code? I mean,
How does the
seriously.
government lose voters' information? I mean,
Let me give you an example from my workplace. Yeah, I was cleaning up my shared drive, and now I'm missing some files. Do you know where those were? And then the network administrator goes, well, I didn't notice it, but for the last 3 months, we have been running backups. Well, guess we can't get it anymore.
I would be willing to bet that source code was lost about 5 seconds after they burned the final version. Like, yep, we're done. Let's clear everything off and start on the
I
next
think it
game.
has something to do with the failure of the
Hey,
Hyper
shouldn't we
64.
keep some of this up? Doesn't matter now.
I think it has something to do with the failure of the Hyper 64. It just
And then
never
they just
caught on.
lost
They
the-
finally decided, well, we're not making anything more for it. We'll just set it aside somewhere, and then it just disappeared.
I bet that's true for a lot of old stuff. I bet that's why we see these old games re-implemented as emulators instead of being, recoded for
There's no
existing
other way to do
platforms.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although
So
I don't know if you can dump the ROMs off the 64 setup.
yeah,
It's
there's a
not
way
like
around
a
everything.
PCB, a standard PCB.
So
I bet SNK could do it.
Yeah.
so anyway,
Somebody
John
with enough
said.
time on their hands could probably do it.
So John, you said Out of This World. Any others?
That I could think of for being particularly beautiful. And
I mean,
sticking in my head.
I'm assuming you might say Flashback.
Well, I did like the whole run of
Yeah.
those games, but Out of This World was, I think, the
What
best
about
of them.
Abe's Odyssey?
Ooh, they were pretty, but man, trying to get 100 saved on that game was just a pain on the ass. Pain on the ass, in the ass, up the ass, around the ass.
For those of you not familiar with the ass.
Yeah.
But it was gorgeous, and that's kind of the
Yeah. So,
requirement here, I guess.
so anyone else want to share their?
It kind of like dampens my memories of it, though. Remembering, just trying to get there's like this one secret area at the very beginning of Abe's Odyssey. You like backtrack a little bit. There's like 4 guys in there, and I spent like a whole goddamn day trying to save those first 4 guys on the first fucking screen.
Well, it depends on what genre you go into. For me, I mean, there's tons of fighting games out there that are just excellent, beautiful emotion. There's the Metal Slug series; those are just awesome. 3 in particular being the best. There's lots of quality 2D gaming out there from our day and age.
Yeah.
It's still being re-released today on some
Yeah.
consoles.
But I don't know.
Definitely Castlevania too.
Well,
Always a
I
great
think anything
experience
after
for that.
I think anything after Symphony of the Night, though.
Yeah.
Even though
The first 3 were kind of generic, and they couldn't really
I don't
find
know,
a constant.
I thought that
Number
Lord
3 was
Simon's
probably
Quest
the best.
actually looked pretty good.
Yeah.
for
It's
its
the
time,
shortest game ever. But
I really liked Bloodlines 2 on the Genesis. I think that was a lot of fun, and I think it was because they implemented new weapons and they had multiple characters to choose from.
but as far as how it looked, as far as like a 2D game, I mean,
I
it
think
still
it
looked
looked pretty good.
It looked standard for a lot of the stuff that came out on the Genesis. So it
Symphony
had
was
that
definitely
look
the
to
peak.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as far as gorgeous 2D games, with Castlevania, I mean, Symphony of the Night is kind of a given.
Yeah.
But beyond that, probably a lot of the what they call the Castleroid games, or the Metroidvania games is what they're calling it. But basically, it's anything after Symphony of the Night where they do, instead of just the linear path, you have this whole castle to explore, a la Metroid.
Yeah,
There's
it's
a whole thing where
non-linear
you
now.
go and collect power-ups, and that unlocks additional areas in
Yeah,
a large
that-
interconnected map. And,
yes.
yeah.
And find bonus things along the way to change
Yeah.
the way
Well-
you can beat the game.
What was that one shooter that we were playing at one of our gaming days that was, looked like a Miyazaki thing? It had like
Pro Gear Arashi. That was the one that looked like a Miyazaki film.
Oh yeah,
Just beautifully done.
Progress no Arashi. That was actually a Capcom game. It was published by Capcom, but it was designed by Cave.
Yeah, Cave just they know how to do it. They really
Yeah, they know how to do it very difficult.
Yeah.
Well, it was pretty though.
But I think, and you'll probably agree with me, Brian. I think Street Fighter 3, probably some of the best 2D graphics
Third Impact
ever.
is just pretty. It's just it's so many frames animation in there that just make it so fluid and it's so much more realistic. I don't know. It made me want to play it more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And I still enjoy playing that today. Speaking of, you want to fight?
Them fighting words.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But
think-
bad 2D games, I could name a bunch of those too.
I think that one of the things that I always looked for and stood out for me in the 2D games was really well done animation and interacting with the environment.
Yeah.
Another one that comes to mind is the original Prince of Persia.
That's a good example. I think some of the Super Nintendo SquareSoft games had some really good artwork in it. I think probably Chrono Trigger was probably, although some of the artwork in, say, Seiken Densetsu 3 or Bahamut Lagoon was pretty impressive as well. And I'd also make a quick shout out to Ogre Battle, but I don't know how many people still remember that game.
Yeah, hard game.
Weren't they still making those?
They're in Japan.
Maybe. It's supposed to be like a series of games, but it's supposed to be like 13 games
We
in the
don't
series.
see more than 1 out of every 5 over here if we're lucky.
Well, of
though.
course.
Because there was like an
Unfortunately.
Ogre Battle Tactics for the GBA, I think, wasn't there?
There's an Ogre Battle
Yeah.
Tactics on the PS1 also. There's also an Ogre Battle, I think it was a Tactics for the Neo Geo CD. I mean, the Neo Geo Pocket
Color. Yeah, maybe.
That was a very sought after game.
Rise of the Robots was kind of pretty.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Rise of
Pretty
the
when you
Robots was
turned it
made
off
of
and broke the
fail.
disc. Yeah.
Yeah, we will talk about the worst fighting games
It was
ever.
pretty
There
when
is-
the disc actually hit the wall and shattered into so many sparkly pieces.
That's just because you didn't have me or Murdock telling you can't buy this game.
Yeah.
No, you can't. No, I'm not kidding. Put it
Where
back
were
on the
my
shelf.
friends when I needed them?
Put it back on the shelf. No, we wouldn't sell it to you.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I have a choice between Rise of the Robots or War Gods. Hell, here's Weapon Lord. Let me play this.
Here's you could either buy, Rise of the Robots or Phantasmagoria. Well,
Thank God they came out with time killers.
Phantasmagoria. God, I hate that game.
I think you're supposed to
what
reserve
game? It was a
that,
movie.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I think you were supposed to reserve that for Phantasmagoria 2, actually.
Same thing. All right, next we're going to do Gamer.
Phantasmagoria didn't have aliens. It was like about ghosts and haunting instead of, being an alien from another world. And
Holy 360, Batman.
Seriously, Phantasmagoria 2
You wonder why it was made
pretty
of
far
fail.
out there.
Anyway,
It had a dominatrix in it.
I think there was a copy of Phantasmagoria and a copy of Phantasmagoria.
yeah,
just
but
sitting
so
on the
did
shelves for
well,
years.
the game
So
Rihanna
did,
Rogue also had a dominatrix in
So
it. That
did
game sucked.
So did the first 4-player fighting game that never came out.
Oh God!
Name that game. I've got it at home too.
First 4-player fighting game. Were you talking about?
The one that got bought out. The company got bought out by EA Games, and then they closed them down, killed the game. I've got a burn of it on my PlayStation.
Oh, you're talking about Thrill Kill.
Thrill Kill. Oh yeah, that had some wicked characters: dominatrix, a midget, a conformist.
Can't imagine why that game did not come out.
contortionist.
And a conformist.
I'm in a conformist. Well, she was a conformist of sorts. You're gonna bend to my will.
All right, moving on. Steve has a review for his feature called Gamer Under a Rock. So, Steve, tell us about this game.
Well, the game I did was I played for like a week and a half or so. Was The Path of Neo, and The Path of Neo is basically a action fighting shooter adventure game, and basically you play more or less the role of Neo through all 3 games. Now,
3 games.
well, movies.
3
movies.
One
Although
game, 3 movies.
They do kind of try and separate it out a little bit by your... The thing with this game is that you start off this game and you get to pick either the red pill or the blue pill. You can pick...
We suggest the blue pill?
Yeah.
At
You
least
can
the
pick-
first time.
You can pick the blue pill.
Does
And
it say game over?
It does. It basically it goes through and Morpheus sounds very disappointed, and then you wake up and then it brings you back to the start again.
And somewhere in the credits it says Neo was a pussy.
Yeah. So when you pick the red pill, and immediately it drops you into the lobby scene from the first Matrix movie. I mean, immediately. There's no tutorial. There's no hit these buttons. No nothing. You're dropped in there, and people are shooting at you.
Sometimes that's the best way to learn.
Well, it'd be helpful if they told you what all these buttons did. So you go through, and basically what you do, as far as I can tell, is you play as long as you can and survive as long as you can. Not unlike Towel Rod. And you get to...
Obscure reference.
I wasn't able to get through the whole, that whole scene, but afterwards you get to pick what skill level you want to do. And I believe there's like easy, and then there's normal, which is the master one, and then there's another slot. It's kind of off-centered, so I'm believing there's another slot that's like expert mode that you can go through, and everything is harder. So after that, the weird thing about this is that you get clips from the movies, but they don't appear in the same order as they did in the movies. And so there's these little mini film montages that appear between all these different things that are kind of cool, but don't really relate to the game very much.
Yeah.
So after this, you end up in this sort of Matrix-y area where you have to go through and you start learning your skills, basically. You start off with, learning kung fu and karate and stuff. And the level designers apparently were very creative. It's one of the nice things about this game is that when you're learning kung fu and karate, you're playing in levels that are designed after Hong Kong action films. They're designed after Enter the Dragon or Mortal Kombat, or they're Hong Kong, triad films or things like that. And so they're really fun. The problem is that the game is really uneven. the hand-to-hand combat is some of the best hand-to-hand combat stuff I've seen or played in an adventure game since, in my personal opinion, since the first Buffy game. First Buffy game, really good. It's just very intuitive fighting. You don't have to learn a lot of stuff to kick ass. Problem is the gunplay, not very good. The gunplay is, there's a lot of little things that get you. Camera doesn't move very well for a fighting game. The tendency for your targeter to continually target dead people is not helpful at all. The fastest way to untarget these dead people, if there's no one else on the screen, is to put your guns away and then pull them back up again, which is just bad. It's just bad programming. It's like somebody testing.
How good is the gunplay, anyways, if you're shooting at agents that can dodge bullets?
Well, that's
That's a
was that
special
really
case.
useful?
that's really a special case. One of the other. So I spent most of the game, and I know John played actually a lot of this game one night, and so he can probably talk a little bit more because he played a lot more of the gunplay stuff than I did. But I spent the majority of the time I was playing the game, even if I had guns, doing the hand-to-hand combat stuff because A, it was more fun, and B, I was more effective when I was doing it. So there's like half of the combat system I just avoided entirely.
The main thing I remember about the gunplay was Neo bent over, flopping like a boneless squid as the
Yes.
agent shot at him,
Yes.
waiting for
When he-
Trinity to wander over 5 seconds
saying,
later and
"Trinity,
fire a
shoot the
bullet at the
agent!"
agent.
It's really funny because literally you sit there and you wobble your arms, bend it over backwards for about a minute, and waiting for Trinity to get over there and shoot the agent in the head.
Well,
It's just
Is
not
this
very
is
dramatic.
this as funny as I think it is?
It's
Yes.
really hilarious looking.
Neo looks exactly like everybody who has ever tried to imitate that
Yeah.
scene for a friend.
It really
dear
is.
God.
It loses a lot when you're not in bullet time and rotating the camera. Otherwise you're just sitting there doing this and just flopping. But on the other hand, one of the great things about this game, and I didn't get really far into the game, but one of the great things is that there are alternate outcomes to it versus the movie. So, for example, the big one that I went through was in the first movie when you go, when the agents come for Neo and Neo tries to make it out of the building and he doesn't make it around the thing and gets captured. In the game, if you choose to, you can get all the way out of the office building. You can go through the whole office building, escape from the agents, escape from the cops, and meet Trinity at the bottom on her motorcycle like you were supposed to, like Neo was supposed to in the game. Or in the
You
movie.
mean it's all from like a third-person perspective, right?
It's a third-person action game.
Usually.
I
Usually.
could've-
There's a couple of
yeah.
notable weird
I've
things
seen
in
this
that
in
movie.
motion, but I didn't know if there was any switch to first-person at time.
There's no first person, but there's a really weird couple of things in the hotel scene from the first movie where you're running around. It's after they've started changing the building around. And there's a couple of rooms where you go in, and it turns into fixed perspective from one of the corners of the rooms. It's like the top corner of the ceiling.
You
And-
get the alone-in-the-dark camera angles there. Yeah.
It's just bizarre. It's these two rooms out of nowhere for no apparent reason.
Probably easier for them to fix a camera angle and just view you from one
No,
spot
because
than have to
you
go
literally
through
go
the-
from one room to the next, and when you walk through the door, it switches that angle. You walk through another door, it switches to a different angle, and then you walk to the next door, and you're back at third person again.
I
Sounds like
bet.
they tried to mix it up and make it look interesting or
Well,
something.
no, I
and
bet
just-
why they did that is because, later on, you fight the agents at the end of the first movie.
Yeah.
And there they had a lot of destructible walls and everything, so they couldn't do the fixed camera angles.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of times there where I had camera floating on the other side of the wall
Yeah.
from where I was. It's like, I'm staring at wallpaper while an agent pummels my face into the ground.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I probably could have appreciated it more if it had a first-person setup and did a bullet
You
time.
couldn't
kinda
have
like
done the
Max
hand-to-hand
Payne
combat.
You couldn't do the hand-to-hand combat because there's so much. There's a great thing. The great thing about the hand-to-hand combat is there's a lot of combo stuff you can do with the game. So you can literally fight 3 people at once. You tangle them up and you do a move to them. And that's in some of the cases.
like
That's the
Jackie
only
Chan
way.
or,
Well, it's the only way you can win some of these encounters
Yeah.
is mastering the combo stuff. So
So
it'd be very difficult to do in a first
And it's
person.
just almost impossible to do melee combat first person.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it just doesn't
Well,
happen.
even if they gave you that option,
Better
just to
games have
add a
tried.
First-person shooting to go to combat, that would have been interesting too.
Actually,
Games do that.
Also because when you're doing the shooting stuff, and especially going in bullet time, you're really swapping between a lot of targets, and you're doing it faster than any reasonable control scheme would ever work for driving the cursor over
is
there.
another good point. This is the control scheme for this is for hand-to-hand combat, very good. For gun combat, there's just not enough fingers.
I mean, there really isn't.
You have to
you've
actually
gotta
be
go into
aware
bullet
of the
time.
matrix to
You
play
do.
the
You've got to
game.
turn on bullet time. You have to dodge. You have to fire, which are all separate buttons. And then you have to use the right thumbstick to toggle through different targets.
And then somehow you got to hold a spoon.
Yeah. So bullet time's like the left trigger.
Yeah,
I
you're
think
using both triggers.
you're using
and
both triggers
sticks.
and both sticks at the same time.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to do.
So what would you give this?
I'd probably give it. I wish I had more time to play it, but I'd probably give it a 3 maybe. If the gunplay had been better, I definitely would have gotten up to 4 or something.
If you
but
didn't
the
like the
gunplay-
Matrix, what would you give it?
I'd probably get like 2.75 or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it wasn't outstanding. It was cool playing as Neo.
But
And
the whole thing was flipped around from the actual movie script.
well, it wasn't really flipped around so much as really, they could have done a lot better by just leaving out the little snippets from the movie because they didn't add anything to the game. They were just like, remember these cool scenes in the movie?
No.
Yeah, wasn't that cool?
Yeah. All right. So
And then, there was just such a huge difference when they'd switch between the movie footage and the in-game models.
Yeah. Well, and I have to say this too because I haven't said it on tape or whatever yet. The gunplay in Enter the Matrix, the first Matrix movie, was definitely better. I mean, it was very usable. The bullet time worked better for gunplay. Not so much with the hand-to-hand.
okay. So next we're going to do our game reviews. I have a quick review for a PlayStation portable game by the name of Sengoku Cannon. Sengoku Cannon is the third in a series of shoot-'em-up/shooter games. The first one is Sengoku Ace, which is a top-down shooter for the arcade. The second one is Sengoku Blade, which is Sengoku Ace 2, which was on the arcade and was ported onto the Saturn. And this third one in the series is Sengoku Cannon. It's by Psycho, published by Xnauts, and it's not a good game. What it is that they took just some 2D sprites that they ripped out of some previous games and maybe added a few frames of animation, added completely 3D backgrounds, and made a shooter. The problem is that the 3D backgrounds are very, very, very plain. Literally not a lot of variety. I'm sure it does not take long to make a 3D polygon model of a field. Because that's basically what one of the levels is. It's just nothing but green and field and maybe an ocean in the back.
Are there Mandelbrot brain?
I don't know what's in there, but the background's
Well, you can tell
very,
it goes to
very
the next
plain.
scene because it just wash, rinse, and repeat.
Yeah,
You get that same
but
scene of green.
yeah, all of it is just landscape, and it's just not very
It's
interesting.
like driving through Nebraska.
Yeah, it would have.
With a gun.
And here's the thing: all the backgrounds are 3D, and this is one of those cases where it would have been better if they just did 2D.
You would have
backgrounds.
preferred a 2D field?
Well,
One nice tiled field sprite.
well,
They need parallax field.
just give the artist like a long strip of paper, say draw something, we'll scan it in and put it in the game. Not that hard. So
Yeah, but
Well-
it would have cost more than doing their field.
yeah,
and-
possibly.
As we discussed before, that guy probably doesn't even have a job there anymore.
Yeah. So anyway, it's basically your standard shooter. You have a shot button, you have a bomb button. The only real interesting thing is that you can actually charge up your weapon and have what's called a Sengoku cannon. And if a lot of enemies are shooting bullets at you, if you use your Sengoku cannon and destroy one of the enemies, all the bullets on the screen will turn into points. And by using this type of reversal tactic, you can build up combos and build a large amount of points. The problem is that you can't use the cannon all the time. You do have to wait for it to charge. So while you're charging, you're extremely vulnerable. The big problem is actually not with the game itself, but with the design of the PSP. Because the joypad is not as robust as it should be, playing any type of game where you have to have precise control over 8 directions doesn't work too well with the PSP controller. It's too close to the base of the PSP, and therefore, when you move right, sometimes you'll move like upright or downright. You don't get that precise control that you really need to dodge millions of bullets in a shooter.
It's too small of a joystick.
Yeah, and it's too small. So there's not much of a story to this game. Shoot everything that moves. That's basically the story.
If you can shoot it, you
Yeah.
can kill it.
And the problem is that there's so many bullets.
That's your diehard gamer game tip.
But the big problem is that the ships, which are actually just players, don't really have much of a hitbox, and it's really hard to dodge things. And because of the controller and the fact that it's really hard to just be very precise, it makes the game very, very difficult to even get anywhere in the game. So in the end, I'm going to end up giving Sengoku Cannon a 2 out of 5. It has a lot of potential, but
just never exploited.
It never exploited, and I think a large part of it was that the game was just rushed.
Yeah.
It was just rushed into the market. If they spent another 2-3 months in development, it would have been a better game, just tweaking it or even, adding something more to the 3D backgrounds instead of just scrolling sky. And in the last level, there's no background. It's just black.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. So anyway,
not even like
that's so that the highly colored boss at the end can be seen in all its glory against that contrasting background.
Yeah, you keep trying that one.
So
we call it cheap.
We have
that's a game that never had a U.S. release. Did it?
Nope. So
that was import only from Japan.
Yep.
That's probably one of the major reasons, because it just sucked.
Yeah. And, you buy it thinking, well, it's going to build on this, because it had, 2 really, really awesome games prior. So you figure, hey, the third one's out. Must be cool.
And it's portable.
Yeah, well, made of suck. So next we have a group review? Co-review.
Because it takes 2 people to play this game.
Oh, okay.
It did not happen with one person alone.
So Brian and John have a review on Odama. So what's this all about?
Well, at first we thought it was a pinball.
Yeah, but then kind of thought it was an RTS.
And then we realized it's got some object orientation, kind of movement and puzzle, and you can't really classify this game. It's just weird.
That's some mission-based gameplay going on, bosses, items to pick up, power-ups, and a giant pinball.
Yeah, the giant rolling pinball of death. And it comes with a microphone.
Which ends up being pretty important.
And a little microphone stand you can even clip on your controller, because we don't have a third arm to hold it.
Although guaranteed not to work with a third-party controller.
Of course. So after you spoke to your seaman, what happened in the game?
We told him to march forward.
Well, the game is pretty Japanese. It starts off, it has the classic growly Japanese dude yelling at you that you need to go off and then save the family and recover your honor and crush people with your family heirloom giant pinball.
And your army of samurai. And a giant bell. And you must use
Nintendo.
you must use the force of Nintendo. Not kidding there. Actually written into the game. The whole point of this game is to move this giant bell from your part, which is the flippers basically, up to the end of the screen, wherever that may be, and open a giant door. And sometimes you got to move a ladder in front of it to get your guys up there, or you got to close waterways to let them cross.
Or defeat a giant general.
Yeah,
so
you got to knock a giant general over with the pinball so that you
need to use your lemmings to get there.
Well, no, that's your little guys, your little samurai.
So is Nintendo like this hidden power that can
Apparently
defeat
they were back in the 17th
like
century.
Yeah, it's like the way of heaven. Or
well, actually,
it's made of wind and God.
Just on a side note, the word Nintendo for the company Nintendo is written with 3 kanji, and it does mean leave luck to heaven.
Well, because when they went ahead and did this Nintendo thing, that's why the first character of each of the 3 slogans for the bell became Nintendo.
Yeah. And it breaks down to nin something something 10 something something do something something. So
That's original.
yeah.
You thought they were just being facetious when they said that you were playing with power, didn't you?
Yeah.
So not only do you need to move this giant pinball across the screen and take out buildings that have a giant key above them to unlock doorways that you've got to shoot your pinball through later, you need somebody to yell into the microphone to control your army as you're doing this, which is just not possible with one person. I don't care how good you are.
It's definitely, you'd have to split your brain into two pieces to handle keeping track of everything that's going on screen, telling your guys, march left, press forward, rally at the key.
Run away!
And then you still got to move your
back.
cursor over all these items to tell them where to rally and when to rally. And you got to be able to march left, march right, pull back,
and
press
then you've
forward.
got flippers.
Yeah, and then you got the flippers, and then
you-
on top of that, once you control waterways, you got to be able to say open gate, close gate, so you can flood the army if they get close to you. The opposing army, that is trying to stop you from pulling the bell up to the top of the screen.
This game sounds
You have
almost too complex to be fun.
You have to avoid,
almost is.
rolling over your own troops. You want to hit the enemy troops. You've got a morale bar to manage for your
If
troops.
morale gets too low, you got to hit the Z button to release troops from below the flipper to boost morale. And the saving grace is you can boost morale in other ways. You can also get this little green ball that turns your Odama into a special Odama, which
The
means
heavenly Odama.
yeah, it doesn't kill your guys, but it rolls over their guys, and it adds their guys to your pool of guys to pull from. So it
Converts
increases
them.
your army all of a sudden. And it's just hilarious. It's really more fun to just watch than play. But
It was really wacky. I mean, there's
I enjoyed it, but it was
Yeah.
something you've really got to be ready for. It's, like we said, there's no way to define it simply, and there's no easy way to play it with one person.
definitely recommended to grab a buddy when you play this game.
Yeah.
And it's really not very long. This, you could beat this in a weekend without trouble.
And it's not true pinball in the traditional sense with the tilt, and you don't have any control of the ball. You actually can move
you do
your
have-
Z-stick and actually move the ball left and right a little bit of where you send it. So you have some control over it. It makes it a little more fun.
But the playing field never tilts. So
No,
you
no.
can just keep tilting the ball around. There's there are secret areas though that you can unlock in the different maps to get to different areas.
You also open new commands that you can yell into the microphone by getting into these areas. It gets really silly.
Yeah. Well, and like what the one we were playing at the end of the mountain field, when you have to go ahead and knock down these platforms. Well, first you have to get your troops to run up there and push these boulders closed on the left and right side to keep enemy troops from pouring in. Then you have to knock down these platforms on either side so you can get the ball to roll up and knock the enemy general off of his perch. Where otherwise, if he stays up there, whenever your troops get too close, he pushes a water cistern over that goes ahead and knocks everybody down.
So I've got to move my rally button over the rock and then tell him rally. So
Yeah.
he yells rally into the thing and gets the troops to run to the block because they've got to know where they've got to rally. They shut that boulder into the wall, and then we go to the next. We move the cursor to the next rock and rally and get those shut.
So basically what you're telling me is that you need a real live Japanese army to help you control this game.
One that knows how to rally.
So-
a lot of rallying.
March left and march right.
And
So-
they need some big morale boosting.
Yeah.
So what do you give this
I forgot to mention, there's another thing, too. If the opposing army gets too strong or too large in number, you can divert them by a little cannon on the bottom which shoots a giant rice ball into an area you shoot the cursor to. And all of a sudden, though, half the army will split off and see the rice ball and run to it like they haven't eaten in a week. And this can actually make the difference of you winning or losing, because if it cuts half the army off, you can press forward faster and get your Odama through the gate.
You can distract them.
A giant rice ball could mean all the difference between you
Or
and
you can
death.
feed the rice balls to your own troops to boost morale.
yeah. Oh
So,
boy,
so that's what we're missing in Iraq. Ah, okay.
Rice balls.
morale boosting rice balls.
Well, we need the heavenly Odama to convert them all over to our cause.
Yeah.
So what would you give this bizarre game? Because I think bizarre is the only way I can describe this game.
I totally enjoyed it. I'd say definite 4 out of 5.
I would say it's a 4 out of 5 for 2 players. I think with one player, you're probably looking at more like a 2 or 3. But if you can grab a friend for it, you can really make this
You
worthwhile.
really cannot think and speak the different things you need to at the same time. It's got to be a 2-player game.
All right. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and end the podcast now because I don't feel like doing the review of my classic stuff because I'm getting tired and the show's running kind of long. It's already like an hour and a half.
Well, I'll do classic stuff next week anyways.
Yeah. So anyway,
we should do Dirt Jockey and Power Shovel.
Yeah.
well, it's our 10th show. We should do something special.
Dirt Jockey and Power Shovel.
You can pick some.
That is pretty special.
So anyway, that's it for Diehard Gamer Radio. Is there anything else that I need to hear from the Peanut Gallery before we...
Monkey. I've been pondering ever since you said Iraqi rice balls. Kind of wondering what those taste like.
Is that going into the comic?
They're dirty.
I don't know.
Well, we just need to
Rice
build one of
balls are
those
very
super
easy to
guns.
draw.
I'm sure they are.
Just need one of those super guns that launches, intercontinental ballistic rice balls.
Yes.
Not only do they feed troops, they can wipe out probably half an army after the drop in speed.
And
or whatever's left of it after reaching orbit.
They can almost certainly clean up oil spills as well.
Rice is very
Depends on
absorbent.
if it's cooked
Yes.
or not.
Yeah. So anyway, that's it for Diehard Gamer Radio. Let me go ahead and do the ending stuff like I always do. You've been listening to Diehard Gamer Radio. As always, you can listen to us at diehardgamerradio.com. You can also check us out at allpodcasts.com and podcastalley.com. And you can also pick up our RSS feed at diehardgamerradio.com/dgr.rss. So once again, you've been listening to 4 guys who know a lot about games and masturbation, but don't know about anything else.
Auf Wiedersehen!
But don't know dick about anything.
Well,